The last Glideride was released over 2 years ago, and I was certain that this shoe was discontinued. But then, ASICS surprised us all with an update. This is the Glideride Max. It's time to take it for a ride. Yo, what's going on? My name is Kapuzi and I'm a non-elite runner who reviews running shoes here on YouTube. And today, I want to talk to you guys all about the new ASICS Glideride Max. But before I give you my thoughts on this shoe, I do want to go over some disclosures. This is a pair of shoes that ASICS sent to me for the purpose of a review, so I did not have to pay for these shoes. However, nobody's paying me to make this video or to include their shoe in this video, and no one's going to get a chance to preview any of my footage or my thoughts before you guys get a chance to see this video on YouTube. So with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Glideride Max, and let's start with the specs. This is a 44 millimeter stack height shoe with a 6 millimeter drop, giving us 38 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot. This is a very tall shoe. And there's 3 different components in this shoe. I think kind of the top line or headline material that we're looking at here is the brand new foam from ASICS. That's the FF Blast Max foam. It's the next generation of FF Blast. We're going to start seeing it in other shoes in the ASICS lineup in the future, and I believe this is the first shoe from ASICS that gets this upgraded daily training foam. And then on the bottom layer of this shoe, we have ASICS FF Blast Plus Eco, which is a foam we've seen in a variety of shoes this year, like in the Nimbus 26. And then in between those 2 layers of foam, there is a hardened EVA plate similar to what we've seen in previous Gliderides. And they tell me that it's a 3/4 length plate that kind of starts a little bit past this little swirly A in the ASICS logo, and then it kind of becomes bigger as it goes up into the forefoot. They're calling it a frying pan shape. So it's mostly going to be in the forefoot of the shoe, separating the softer layer up top from the less soft layer that's on the bottom. Now, speaking of the bottom or the outsole of the shoe, we have ASICS Hybrid Grip, which is 2 different compounds that are zonally placed depending on what the shoe needs in which area. We have both ASICS Grip and A Hard Plus. So we got durable materials where there might be high wear and grippy materials where you need more traction. And while we're still down here looking at the bottom of the shoe, it does look very familiar. Not only does it kind of look like the outsole that we saw on the Glideride 3, where it's got that center channel, or at least kind of the remnants of that center channel that this shoe had, but it also looks quite a bit like the Nimbus 26. Now, it's not exactly the same. There are some differences, and we'll get to that later in the video, but there's definitely some resemblances there. Now, moving to the upper, we have engineered mesh, which is very soft and very stretchy. The whole fit of the shoe is very comfortable, which makes sense for a Glideride shoe. I went true to size in my normal running shoe size 9, and that worked out really well for me. For the tongue, we don't have the same knit material that we've seen in the Cumulus and the Nimbus of this year, which for me is quite a disappointment because I love those tongues. But we do have less padding than we've seen in the previous Glideride, which I think is a step in the right direction. In the heel cup, though, that's where we're still seeing a bunch of foam here in terms of the upholstery, and also in the back of the shoe, we've got a really thick and dense heel cup. And then to top it all off, we've got double pull tabs. Altogether, this shoe comes in at a relatively heavy weight. ASICS tells us that it's 287 grams and 10.1 ounces. Now that we talked about what this shoe is like on paper, let's talk about what it's like on the roads. The Glideride Max is a comfortable max cushion experience. I'm getting really nice soft landings from that top layer of FF Blast Max foam, and I'm getting a nice roll forward with each stride with that guide sole technology or that geometry that's built into the front of the shoe that just lets it roll. I've been enjoying the shoe for recovery runs and for my everyday easy runs, and I think the shoe does a fantastic job at each of those tasks. Now, you can certainly pick up the pace in the shoe just a little bit, like if you're doing strides, but again, as a max cushion shoe, it's not something that you're going to be reaching for a big workout or a speed or tempo session, but instead, this is a shoe for cruisy miles that's suitable for your recovery runs, easy runs, and long runs. This is a shoe for enjoying the run and not worrying so much about what the paces are. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do with this shoe, since it is the first shoe in the ASICS lineup to get the FF Blast Max treatment, is try to figure out like what is the FF Blast Max? What is it supposed to do? How much better is it going to be? How excited should we be getting for other shoes down the line? And I gotta say that it's kind of tough to tease it out because there still are two other elements in this shoe. We've got that hardened EVA plate layer that's in between the two layers of foam, and that bottom layer of foam is FF Blast Plus Eco. And so I'm still feeling a little bit of firmness and roll through the bottom of the shoe, which I think works well with the shoe, but I also feel like that's not all FF Blast Max that I'm feeling. And so while I can't exactly say how excited I am or am not for the FF Blast Max yet, what I can say is the addition of that foam and that hardened EVA layer in the Glideride Max make it for a softer experience than another shoe in the ASICS lineup that only has the FF Blast Plus Eco, and that's the Nimbus 26. So when I'm comparing two shoes, even though they have a lot of similarities on paper and visually as well, but there are a couple of differences that I think would explain why I feel like the Nimbus 26 has a little bit of extra firmness to it that personally I don't love, and that seems to be corrected or adjusted in the Glideride Max. The Glideride Max is really the Nimbus that I was hoping for in the Nimbus 26. And so like it's softer, it's big, it's cushioned, it rolls really well. And while it is a little bit on the heavy side, for a shoe of this type, it's not a weight that really bothers me all that much because I'm enjoying kind of just having an easy, fun time when I'm racking up the miles in this shoe. And I think the other thing that we have to also think about, maybe we can kind of tease out as we're trying to figure out what FF Blast Max is comparing it to its predecessor. Well, let's talk about the Glideride 3. Now, this is a shoe that I initially thought was a little bit odd and didn't love right away, but I started to really take a shine to it as I got to run it a little bit more and understood kind of like what this shoe was really trying to provide. Something that we're not seeing anymore when we're looking at the Glideride Max, but we saw in the Glideride 3 was this kind of paddle or scoop shape design at the forefoot of this shoe. It was reminiscent of that old Metaride, ASICS first $250, I don't know if we want to call it a super shoe, but that shoe was a very unique design that I've never quite seen anything like it since, but there were some remnants of that in the Glideride 3, and that was really like the pinnacle of the guide sole technology where the shoe really rolled you forward. And adding to that gliding sensation and rolling sensation was this kind of like horseshoe shaped design that existed in this shoe. Now, it wasn't about stability, but what it did was kind of two things. There was a giant cavity down the center of the shoe, and you could see that hardened EVA layer in the Glideride 3. You had a window right to it. And what that ended up doing was it gave your foot a very soft space to kind of land inside the shoe. So you had this sense of like stable rails and then a soft landing on the inside. And that softness, that kind of the quirkiness of that was just something that you started to crave when you were beat up and looking for a max cushion recovery run type of shoe. Now, we still kind of have like a shadow or a relic of that center channel. I believe it's pretty much the same shape, but it's not nearly as deep of a cut into the shoe. And then with the modified ASICS grip, we're getting more of a Nimbus style outsole than we got a Glideride style outsole. And while I appreciate that there's less rubber and you're feeling more of what the foams are doing, we are lost a little bit of that kind of like dip-in sensation that this shoe had. Now, I'm still getting it just a little bit, but it's not quite as assertive and noticeable as it was in the Glideride 3. So for people who love that sensation in the Glideride and are hoping for it in the Glideride Max, it's not here. But overall, I think for the pluses and minuses, I think we're getting a better shoe. It's really soft and comfortable. It's something that doesn't take quite as long to kind of figure out what this shoe is all about and what it's trying to do. And it's a really nice Nimbus type experience. It's just Nimbus, but without the gel and a little bit softer. And so I'm really been enjoying this for those easy runs, those comfort seeking runs. The Glideride Max has been really enjoyable for me. The next thing that I would do before we go any further is talk about where the Glideride Max fits within the broader ASICS lineup. So whenever I start thinking about a brand, I always like to start with the Daily Trainer, and for ASICS, that's going to be the Nova Blast. This is a shoe that you're going to be using for the majority of your runs, for the majority of days. It's a workhorse shoe that can just eat up the miles. It's built for durability, but hopefully it's also built for fun, which the Nova Blast 4 has plenty of fun in it. And then as far as a racing shoe goes, if you're liking the Nova Blast 4 as your Daily Trainer, I'm going to say that you will want to pick the Metaspeed Sky Paris. This has a racing caliber foam in it, FF Turbo, and a carbon fiber plate. And so this is the shoe that's super lightweight, super fast, that you're going to want to do a lot of racing in. Now, for those workouts, you want something that's kind of like a Daily Trainer in terms of durability, but has some racing features. And from ASICS, that's going to be the Magic Speed version 4. This uses FF Blast with an FF Turbo puck. So it has some racing foam, some daily training foam, and has a carbon fiber plate. And that's going to fit right in between these two shoes. And then where the Glideride Max fits in, that is the max cushion shoe for those days where you want to go for those long, slow distance runs, or you just want to take care of yourself a little bit extra. That's what the Glideride Max does. And then the last shoe that we have here is the Super Blast. And this is a long run shoe that I'll put on this edge of the spectrum over here. And what the long run shoe is a category of shoe that can go the distance. You can be in it for several hours at a time, and it's cushioned kind of like a max cushion shoe, but it uses some modern updated racing materials in order to make it so that way if you want to pick up the pace during those long runs, maybe you got some marathon effort miles in there, or maybe if you got a progression long run where it's going to get faster and faster and faster as the miles tack on, that's where a shoe like the Super Blast is going to be really fun. And this is how I would look at the ASICS lineup. Now you might be saying, well, what about a shoe like the Nimbus, which we've been talking about today? And I feel like there are kind of not exactly two different lines of shoes coming through the ASICS lineup, but there's kind of some subsets. And so the Nimbus is like the max cushion shoe that I think you would use instead of the Glideride Max. That's where the Nimbus would fit in. And then also next to that, you have the Cumulus, which is a daily trainer, but has a very different kind of setup. It's for a different kind of runner. So for someone that wants a little bit more stability, a little bit more firmness in their shoe, then you're going to be looking at a shoe like the Cumulus. But you know what? Let's hold on for just 1 second. I do think that I can make a complete lineup, second lineup, using alternate shoes from ASICS. So let's go again with the daily trainer of the Cumulus. I'm personally not a big fan of the Cumulus line, but for example, if you love the Brooks Ghost, then the Cumulus is the shoe from ASICS that you should definitely be looking at as your daily trainer. And as we just talked about, the Nimbus then becomes your max cushion shoe. And then I think, and this might be a stretch, the workout shoe, the training companion that you should be looking for is going to be the Nusa Tri. This is a lightweight and low to the ground snappy shoe. It doesn't have a plate in it. It doesn't have racing foams in it, but it's really fun for picking up the pace and you could do a lot of workouts in it. And then if you want to race, then I think the racing shoe you should be looking at is the Metaspeed Edge Paris. So this could be that other set of shoes, a separate lineup from ASICS that you can kind of take a look at. But then again, if you are loving what the Nova Blast has to offer, then I think this is probably going to be more of the lineup for you. Hopefully that makes sense. Now let's close out the video by going over the buying guide, and then we'll talk about some alternatives that you're going to want to consider. The Glideride Max is a max cushion shoe that is comfortable and soft. For those days where you want to really take care of yourself, whether it's a recovery run or you're trying to set a long distance PR and you just want to be able to cover the distance as comfortably as possible, the Glideride Max is going to be a really great option for you. And the Glideride Max releases in the United States on September 17th at a retail price of $170. And I feel like that $170 price is a little bit on the expensive side. I can't say that I absolutely love it. Let's take a look at some of the competition and see where those prices come in. I think the shoe that kind of sits in between the Glideride Max and the Glideride 3, so like the original and the new, I think comes from Puma, and that's going to be the Forever Run. And this is another shoe that took me a little while to kind of fall in love with, but ever since I did, I feel like I've been talking about this shoe all the time. Now, the Forever Run uses two different kinds of nitro foam, and you can kind of see them through the outsole here. There is a firmer layer on the outside, and then there is an insert that is a softer, squishier layer. And it's kind of set up pretty similar to how the Glideride 3 was set up. There's like almost a horseshoe that protects you from tipping over too much on one side or the other as your foot hits the ground. And there's a really soft layer for you to kind of smush into that's really pleasant. I've been enjoying the Forever Run in the same way that I enjoyed the Glideride 3. And that shoe's been out for a while. I was pretty sure we were supposed to get a Forever Run 2 this year. If it's out, I don't know about it yet, and I haven't had a chance to test it. The Forever one, the first one though, is still available, and it's still selling for its full retail price of $150, so $20 cheaper than the Glideride Max. And then the next shoe that I want to talk about is a shoe that I just recently reviewed, and that's from Saucony. That's the Triumph 22. This is another max cushion shoe that's just trying to provide a great amount of softness and squishiness. I say between these two shoes, the Triumph 22 is a mushier experience. So if you're looking for just what is the softest, squishiest shoe that's out there, I feel like the Triumph 22 is pretty much at the top of that list right now. But I do feel like its downside is that you sometimes do get a little bit stuck in that mushiness. So if you want to be able to have something that's soft but still rolls really well, go with the Glideride. If you don't care about rolling and you just want to have a squishy shoe underfoot, go with the Triumph 22. And that shoe retails at $160, so still $10 cheaper than the Glideride Max. So those are my thoughts on the Glideride Max. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about this shoe or any of the shoes that I talked about today. Or better yet, stop by the live stream that I do Mondays and Thursdays over on the Kofuzi Run Club channel. Love to talk to you guys over there in the chat. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of this video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?